Rob, let's get underway then with the football and talk about Liverpool 0, Arsenal 0, and of course Arsenal having had a man sent off. I mean, surely if you'd said to Arsenal fans, you're going to go to Anfield, but you're going to come back 0-0 ahead of the second leg, they would have taken that, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. I think it was job done from Mikel Arteta and Arsenal's perspective. I think that probably would have been one of the last messages in the team talk last night. Make sure we are in the game when we head to the Emirates next Thursday. And in a way, this will sound quite weird, unlike a lot of my answers, but the red card almost helped Arsenal to a certain extent in that it gave them a clarity of message in what they needed to do in the game. I think in recent years, Arsenal have come to Anfield and tried to play Liverpool at their own game. And that's not just under Mikel Arteta, that's under Emery, that's under Arsene Wenger in the latter years as well. And they haven't had the players to do so. They haven't had the players to go toe-to-toe with Liverpool. Whereas last night, where it was pretty much just, we're down to 10 men, let's defend and give ourselves something for the home leg next week, they were able to do it. Liverpool, from their perspective, they lacked ideas, they lacked a bit of urgency. They obviously lacked Mo Salah and Sadio Mané, and they weren't able to find a way through. But it's a big tick in the box of Mikel Arteta last night, I think.
David, what do you think? I mean, I have to be honest, when I saw Xhaka get sent off, you know, not for the first time, this is his fifth red card, you thought, well, that's it, isn't it? The tie's going to be over. Liverpool are going to score a boatload. Both of them have put out strong teams, but what about Xhaka, David? I mean, he apologised on Instagram for his dismissal. He's praised his teammates, but will he get away with this one with the fans because the result in the end wasn't affected?
Yeah, I was at Anfield last night, Pete, and you looked across to the bench and to the away supporters and even to his teammates, and it was almost a sense of, oh, not again. But Granit Xhaka is a very popular figure, especially behind the scenes at Arsenal with staff and players that you talk to around the club. He's part of the leadership group. He's been the captain in the past. He's had no shortage of run-ins, has he? I think it was in 2019 towards the end of the Unai Emery reign when he left the field, dropped the armband to the floor or threw it to the floor, swore at the fans and was stripped of the armband. So it seems to have been sort of one incident after another with him. However, I do think Arsenal fans have been fairly fair towards him on the whole, and he has had his moments where he's shone for them and helped them in difficult times as well. So it's a real conundrum. He recently signed a new contract that keeps him at the club until at least 2024 with an option of a further year. So I don't see him not getting more chances with Arsenal. I don't see him leaving, and Mikel Arteta seems to trust him. But yeah, it certainly wasn't the best moment for him yet again. And I think Arsenal, as they look to strengthen their midfield, we might see more options in the months and years ahead that mean they don't need to rely on him so much.
Rob, what's going on with Liverpool? Just the one win inside 90 minutes in their last 6. What's causing the blip?
Yeah, I think there's probably two different types of game within those 6 matches, and as you said, one win in 90 minutes, one game against Leicester where they got through eventually on penalties. After the game against Chelsea on the 2nd of January, Pep Lijnders, who was in charge that day because Jurgen Klopp had COVID, said it's never boring with Liverpool, and that probably applied to the draw against Tottenham as well, and that's great for a neutral. But the problem is that at times this season, in games where they've dropped points, they've just lacked a little bit of control. It's been a bit sort of you have a shot, we have a shot, end to end, which is great to watch. But ultimately, teams like that don't often tend to go on and win titles. And when you look back to that 2019-20 season where Liverpool absolutely blitzed everyone in front of them, they had that sort of vibe where they scored the first goal and you thought, well, that's over. And that Virgil van Dijk at the back and the goalkeeper and that midfield area with Henderson and Fabinho would really squeeze the game. And that hasn't happened as much this season. There's been too many times where teams have been able to find a route back into the game. Take the game against Tottenham, Chelsea, where they were 2-0 up, but other matches against the likes of Brighton and Brentford, who they play this weekend, where they've given up leads and dropped crucial points, which have allowed Manchester City to get away from them. Last night, I guess, similar to the Leicester game, and they couldn't find a way through. As I said, I think Arsenal deserve a lot of credit for the way that they stuck in with it. But it also, again, shows you the absence of 2 world-class players in Mo Salah and Sadio Mané. And it's not just the fact that someone like Salah can do what he's done all season, all year, in finding something individually absolutely brilliant to get through a defence, but it's also the wonderful combination play that Salah, Mané, and then either Firmino or Jota are almost on this level where one of them flicks it, the other one's in the right position, they square it, and the other one stood there to tap it in. And that front three last night of Minamino, Firmino and Jota just don't have that understanding purely because they haven't played the games together. So I think it's the absence of key players, which Liverpool really need to sort out in the second leg. And the 2 league games they have without Mané and Salah and Mané against Brentford and Palace, which they really need to win both of them if they've got any chance of hanging on to Manchester City's coattails.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, Minamino had the big chance, didn't he? And talking of Salah, David, Jamie Carragher saying after the game last night that, you know, Liverpool's owners won't be forgiven if they don't get Salah's contract situation all sorted out. He's obviously out at the Africa Cup of Nations at the moment, but how perilous a situation is this one? Because clearly they need Salah at the club long term.
They do indeed. I mean, all 3 of their famous front line will be 30 in the summer. All 3 will have a year to go on their contracts. And of them, I'm not sure Firmino's going to be renewed. I'm not sure Mané is going to be renewed. I do think they'll make offers to them, and then it will be down to the players to decide if they want to accept them. The key one, as you say, is Salah. And it seems that at the moment, despite him giving this interview where he said he's not asking for crazy things, it would appear to be a request that Liverpool are not prepared to meet. Otherwise, it would have been signed by now. So it seems there's a bit of a poker game going on. Who blinks first? Does Salah sign what's on the table? Do Liverpool up the offer a bit? Does it run down to the summer and he'll have a year to go? I don't see Liverpool selling Mo Salah, so I think they've got him until at least 2023, even if he was to leave as a free agent. But I think the way things are going, him being arguably the best player in the world at the moment and looking better and stronger and fitter than ever, means that they probably will come to a compromise that would suit everybody. But it's not easy, and Liverpool think very deeply and clearly about these things, especially when players get to a certain age. But you saw that they did after a difficult situation with Jordan Henderson that we reported over the summer, reach an agreement with him, and my suspicion is they'll do the same in the end with Salah.
And of course, as far as Arsenal are concerned, off the back of this big game, because another big game, arguably one of those 2 fixtures that is always circled in the diary right from the North London derby on Super Sunday. Arsenal currently 2 points ahead of Spurs. David, how would you assess the balance of power in North London?
Well, I think if you just looked at the squads in isolation, Arsenal's is probably a little bit stronger, a bit more pace, a bit more variety than Tottenham's. However, we're not looking at them in isolation. We're looking at them in context. And Arsenal are ravaged by injury. They've got COVID issues. They've got players at the Africa Cup of Nations. Tottenham are not at their strongest either. They're a little bit depleted. They need reinforcements if they can get them in the January transfer window. I think they're fairly evenly poised, these 2 clubs at the moment. Both got their relative issues, both not far from top 4. If Tottenham win their 2 games in hand, they'll be in the top 4 places. Antonio Conte's not lost a league game so far, I don't think. And so there's a bit of momentum there. But there's these whispers behind the scenes and from people you speak to around the club that if he doesn't get what he wants in the January window, he might remarkably walk away from the club. And Arsenal, Mikel Arteta is building quite impressively. We know there's going to be bumps along the way. We saw at Nottingham Forest on Sunday an example of that. So I'm going to sit on the fence on this one and say that they are both relatively evenly poised. Tottenham with great new infrastructure, stadium, training ground. Arsenal with a young and exciting squad. 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Fair
enough. Listen, Rob, I'm going to ask you the same question. Where do you think the dominance lies in North London at the moment, or who's slightly ahead, do you think?
I think Arsenal are slightly ahead purely because they're further along the road in their process, that Mikel Arteta has had longer time in the seat to get his ideas across, to work on a structure and a style of play, where Antonio Conte is still pretty new to the job. There has been a lot of times in terms of weeks off with COVID where he hasn't had the full chance to work with his players, spells where they haven't had a game for a while. You sort of see it a little bit maybe with Tottenham and Arsenal, like a tortoise and hare situation, that Arsenal and Mikel Arteta seem to have been given that time. They recruited very young players over the course of the summer, which would give them a good platform to build and be still strong in 3 or 4 years' time. What we've seen with Antonio Conte over the course of his managerial or time as a manager is the ability to really accelerate a club. And that is the big word, if he is able to get what he wants over the coming transfer windows, he could take Tottenham past Arsenal pretty quickly. The flip side of that coin is, as Dave rightly said, that if he doesn't get what he wants, there's also the propensity for quite quickly those toys to fly out the pram and Antonio Conte not to be there very long.
A little short on time, David, briefly, just in a couple of just transfer-specific questions. For Arsenal, no signing yet, but do we expect that to change in the next 2 and a bit weeks in this transfer window?
Well, most immediately, David, they're pushing for Arthur from Juventus. They'd like to sign him on loan, but that will all come down to Juventus if they're willing to give it the green light, and that will be based on whether they get a replacement in. So these are sort of critical days in that one, and Arsenal are threadbare in midfield, so they need reinforcements. They've got some other options there as well if needed. And the striker department, if Arsenal can do it this month, they will. Dusan Vlahovic is the top target from Fiorentina, but it is complicated. We don't know if the player wants to leave. We don't know what role the agents are going to play in this. We do think that Fiorentina would engage in a deal with Arsenal if that was to come about, and Arsenal do have backup options as well. So those are the 2 priority positions.
Wow, what a signing he'd be. Talking about Arthur coming from Juventus, could Aubameyang be going the other way?
I'm not sure about Juventus for Aubameyang. Of course, it would appear with the injury to Chiesa that they may need it, but I don't think there's been any approaches so far. Of course, the situation with Mikel Arteta and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang suggests that if a move materialises this summer, Arsenal probably wouldn't stand in the way of it if the terms were right, and you imagine that Aubameyang would want to get back playing if that's not going to be at Arsenal. I struggle to see a team taking him in a permanent transfer and pay his salary. Even a loan deal will be difficult in terms of his salary. So Arsenal will explore things, I'm sure, towards the end of the window, maybe Aubameyang too, but if the window shuts, he's at the club until at least the end of the season, and Arteta and him will need to try and sort their differences out.